Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about a very, very, very important topic, and that is how to play supports. Now, I've gotten a lot of requests from people asking me, like, hey, dude, can you make a support guide? Can you make a support guide? Can you make a support guide? And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll make a support guide. So, this guide is going to be a general guide on how to play support, not focusing on any specific classes at all, but just like the priorities of what you should be thinking about when you're playing a support. And to list out those priorities in order of importance, the most important to the least important, we have the following. So number one is going to be yearning uptime. Number two, brand uptime. Number three, attack buff uptime. Number four, identity attack buff uptime. Number five, your shields. Number six, your damage reduction. And number seven, your heals. Now, this is the order of importance from most important to least important. And some of you guys are probably going to be wondering, why is heals so low on the list? Well, I'll explain that a little bit more. But in general, people in your party will appreciate you so much more if you are good at doing these things in that order. So first off, yearning uptime. This is probably the simplest thing to do. But there are some people that can't do it very well, especially on large maps like, let's say, Gate 3 Brel, right? There's a big old circle and people are in different parts of the map. And at times, that can get really difficult to do when you have, let's say, a front attacker and a back attacker, right? And then you have a hitmaster somewhere else that's not playing with any of the front or back attackers. It can be very, very difficult, I know. But having the awareness to go around to them every, 15 seconds or so, to go to them and hit them with that yearning buff is going to be very, very important. Because as we all know, if we play DPS, yearning is one of the most important things and one of those valuable things you want from a support, because it just makes the class that you play feel so much better. And yeah, that's what you want to do the most as a support. You want to prioritize being able to hit your classes with yearning. And for the most part, that's not going to be super hard. But as I mentioned, there are going to be some maps where it is a little bit harder. Now, the next one is going to be brand uptime. So that's pretty simple. All supports have a skill that provides brands, sometimes multiple skills. But for the most part, you're going to be taking one skill that has brand, like right here. On hit, leave a ink brand on a foe, damage from all party members plus 10% for 12 seconds. Now, you might be wondering, is it more important to put brand on the target, or is it more important to put attack buff to your party? Well, I'd say both of them are kind of equally as important, but brand just inches out attack buff just by a little. And here's my reasoning for that. If you think about it, brand is a flat 10% damage to all enemies, right? It doesn't matter if you are a geared support, like you have a high attack power, or if you have a low attack power. If you're lower item level, higher item level, lower weapon item level, higher weapon item level, it doesn't matter. It's just a flat 10% damage buff to everybody in your party. So that is why it is just a little bit more important to have brand uptime compared to attack buff uptime. And it's very simple, right? All you need to do, land your brand skill. Make sure that this never runs out. This little brand right here never runs out on the boss. Of course, as a support, it is one of the hardest classes to play. I'm not going to say that it isn't. It really is a lot of things you need to take care of, a lot of things you need to worry about. And as a result, it is a very hard class to play. I always say this, but I find support the most stressful class because I think it's the hardest class to play out of my entire roster. It's not my Eosophist. It's not my Reaper. It's not my Striker. It's my support. Because in order to be a good support, it is very, very hard to do because you have so many things to worry about. And the first thing to worry about, of course, is yearning uptime, and now brand uptime. Make sure you have this brand on the enemy at all times, making sure that you have it up, because it is 100% uptime for all supports. Every support can get 100% uptime on their branding, so do that. Make sure you prioritize it. Next thing is attack buff uptime. Now, there is a good way to do attack buff uptime because most supports run, well, all supports run 2 attack buffs, right? For Artist, it's Sunwell and Sunsketch. For Artist and Bard, you place one of them on the ground, and the other one is one you give just like to everybody on the map. Well, one very important thing is that the cooldown for these 2 skills line up very, very well to the point where you can pretty much have 100% uptime on your attack buff. If you look at this, right, normally as a support, I'm running around, I throw out Brand, right? Then I'll throw out an attack buff. If you look at this attack buff right here, you can watch it goes down, and then you can use your second attack buff, right? Now you watch this attack buff go down. Oh, shoot, my Brand's coming up. I pop Brand. And then when this goes out, my other attack buff is up again. So as you can see, you can cycle these attack buffs very well and pretty much have almost 0 downtime between your 2 attack buffs. And this really is where you as a support will start to shine. Your party will appreciate you so much if you're able to cycle these 2 attack buffs well, to the point where they pretty much have no downtime during their attack buffs. It'll help increase the damage of your party by so much, and people can see that. Now, of course, as I mentioned, it's hard to do. It's not something that's easy, something that you can just do by autopiloting. You really need to pay attention to the attack buff, because sometimes you might not be in the attack buff yourself, right? And your party is. So you need to pay attention to when this attack buff that you place on the ground disappears. Pally is a little bit easier. For supports like Bard and Artist, it's a little bit harder. But how you do it is you just look, right? Keep an eye out on your attack buff. When the attack buff disappears, you have about a second overlap to throw out your next attack buff, because when this thing disappears, you actually have a lingering attack buff that disappears after a second. So what you just need to do is keep a little bit of a mental timer, watch this attack buff. When it goes down, count down, 0.8 to like a second, and then you click your next attack buff. Then that way you'll keep the highest amount of attack buff uptime as possible. Cycle between the 2 attack buffs, because that is how you'll be able to keep a good uptime on your attack buff. Now, that's this third thing. The fourth thing, as I mentioned, is the identity attack buff uptime. And it's as simple as that. Pop your Z skill whenever you have it. It's not really a science, not really, you have to pop it exactly this time. Just pretty much pop it whenever you have it. But there are going to be times when you want to hold it just a little. And as a support, you got to watch for those. That's large part, about knowing the fights. If you know there's going to be a stagger window coming up, if you know there's going to be a window where the boss is standing still for a while, you save your attack buff for those windows. Let's say it's after the first stagger mechanic of Gate 3 Akan, right? The Akan is going to be on the ground after you stagger it for a while. That's when you as a support will pop your identity buff to make sure your DPS has uptime. But other than that, other than those couple windows where you know the boss is going to be on the ground, just keep cycling your attack buffs for your identity. Just keep popping it pretty much on cooldown. Unless, of course, something's going to DR, right? That's knowing the fight, knowing the boss. If you know that it's not a good opportunity to pop your attack buff, don't do it. But for the most part, again, just pop these attack buffs on cooldown. Your party will appreciate it so much. And this is the section that is very clear about what the priorities are. Like I said, Yearning uptime, Brand uptime, attack buff uptime, identity buff, attack buff uptime. That's very clear cut, and that's what you should be doing in that priority. The next part is where there is a little bit more variance depending on what class you play, but in general, it goes like this. And I've mentioned at the top as well. Shields, damage reduction, heals. Those are your next 3 priorities. Now, the reason why I have shields before damage reduction is not because it's more important to make sure your shields are up on your allies at all times. It's because you should prioritize using your shields more than your damage reduction skills. If you think about it this way, right? The previous priorities was, the one right before this was attack buff identity uptime, right? And how do you keep your uptime up? Well, it's to use skills. And for the most part, your shields are the skills that give you the most identity meter. So you should really prioritize hitting those shields on the bosses so that you're able to keep your identity buff uptime high. And let's say it's not that it's not important to shield your allies. Of course you want to shield your allies and give them that protection. But let's say you're given a choice, right? One of your allies is over here and the boss is there by the Luminous. Well, if I'm an artist, I can't hit both my ally and the boss with the shield. In this case, what you should do is prioritize hitting the shield on the boss. Because if you think about it this way, as a DPS class, you are able to heal yourself with the potion. But you're not able to give yourself attack power, other than Atro, of course. But that's kind of like for burst windows. As we're going through the fight, the DPS is unable to give themselves attack buff, but they're going to be able to heal themselves. That's why you should prioritize using your shields to hit the boss over hitting your allies. Of course, again, if you can do both, that is perfect. Go prioritize that. But if you have a situation where you have to make a choice to shield an ally or hit the boss with the shield, I would say go hit the boss with the shield. That way you can get your identity buff meter up, and also you can use the identity meter to heal the ally in case anything else goes wrong, right? I just prioritize hitting the shield on the boss. It's a lot more flexible, and your allies will be very, very thankful for that. Now, next up is damage reduction. And it's a little bit interesting here because I would say while hitting your shields on your allies is less important than hitting the boss, damage reduction is actually flipped from that. If I were to be given a situation where my ally is about to be hit with a big attack over here, but the boss is over here and I can't hit both, I would prioritize popping the damage reduction on that ally over hitting the boss. Because in the long run, a lot of times when you are giving that damage reduction, it is on one, a really big attack that'll probably kill your ally if they didn't get that. But two, at the end of the day, your damage reduction doesn't give you as much shields as as much identity as your shields would anyways. So prioritize hitting your damage reduction and prioritize hitting it on your allies. Again, I think it's more important to hit your damage reduction on your allies than getting the shields on them for that reason. Now, lastly is heals. And some of you guys might be wondering, why are heals last on this list? Well, in most games, supports, their job is to heal allies. It's pretty simple, right? In most games, that is the case. But in Lost Ark, that is actually not the case. And the reasoning for that is because in Lost Ark, the best defense is a good offense. If you think about it this way, right? If you're phasing a boss, pushing a boss in damage, phasing it more, you are seeing a lot less dangerous attack patterns because the boss is going to be moving on to the next phase, or it's going to be transitioning, or doing another mech. And you see a lot less dangerous attack patterns. And you clear the boss faster. As a result, your party is less likely to die when a boss itself is dying faster. But when you heal your party, you might be able to keep them topped up, but they're more likely to get, one shot by something, knocked off by something, because those attack patterns can't be saved by heals. If the game, let's just say, was able to allow you to DPS the boss and you can clear it in time just by using heals, and also didn't have any one-shot patterns, then sure, healing would be very valuable, because there's never going to be a case where your party just gets one shot and then you can't heal them anymore. But in Lost Ark, there are a lot of one-shot patterns or things that knock you off the stage, and because of that, it would be much nicer to not have to see those patterns at all. And that is why the best defense is a good offense in Lost Ark. So that is why healing is lowest on the priority list. Now, of course, every now and then you're going to have to pop a heal. Your ally's going to be out of pots. But really, only heal when it's absolutely necessary, when they're out of pots. Or let's say you know that the boss is going to be phasing, and you can still hit the boss, but the boss is like DR'd or something, so your party can't damage it. Well, you drop a heal during that phase, and then during that DR phase, you as a support can just get another meter bar, just like that. So it makes up for the heals that you dropped earlier, and you can still keep your damage buff uptime high. So that is where I would say is kind of the only place where I would actually heal. When your party absolutely needs it, or if you know you can make up for the heal that you put down by getting meter during a DR phase. But yeah, that is a support in a nutshell and how to play the class. Hopefully this video helped you guys out in learning a bit more about what proper support play is. And as a result of watching this guide, I really hope that all of you guys start seeing that Radiant supporter, underlying Radiant supporter more in the MVP screen. Alright guys, as always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, hit the sub button, ring the bell for notifications, and let me know down in the comment section below if you learned anything new from this video. And as always, I stream every night on twitch.tv/MisoXshiro starting at 10 p.m. PST. Hopefully, I'll see you guys on my stream, but if I don't, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. Alright guys, peace out.